So you need to understand that matters, because when we talk about the budget is more toward on the economic policy that intended to implement by the executive for a particular year. That is the intended economic policy. So therefore, you need to understand the budget for the public sector clearly. Please do not uh, consider that, or please do not relate that, or the budget is similar to what have been you learned in the management accounting, what you have been learned in the private sector. So which is the budget only as a tool. In the public sector, also in the private sector, budget only as a tool. So this is a tool. So therefore, they are not subject to the scrutiny by the board. But in the government, budget is not just as a tool, but budget, more importantly, in the public sector, budget is a law. Budget is a act. That is the budget. So therefore, um, the term budget need to be understood clearly to ensure you do not confuse when we talk about the budget in the public sector. Yes, in terms of format, in terms of the content, in terms of the some aspect, it is similar. But the root of that, the spirit of that, the fundamental of that, if you do not taken into consideration the spirit, the fundamental, the basic aspect, so you will lose on the understanding of the budget in the public sector. So therefore, topic 4, we provide to you on the theoretical conceptual aspect before we are concentrate on the technical aspect. So technical aspect for me, it is easier as compared to the fundamental or conceptual, because the technical, you just copy without understanding. This is a technical. So the technical you can do without you understanding, because you just copy, follow what have been proposed by the others, and then we follow the same thing. Okay, so let we look in more detail on that matters. Okay, so budget policy in Malaysia is governed by the federal constitution. So governed by the federal constitution means that, what means governed by? Means that this is the requirement of the federal constitution. So if we talk about that, what the government need to prepare budget, by hook, by crook? Why? Because this is part and parcel of the requirement of the constitution. So means that if you do not do the budget, you are against the constitution and you are against the law, and you are subject to the so many things. Legitimacy, you may be questionable. So that is the first. The second is budget also. There is the instrument for the government to withdraw the money from the consolidated fund that established under the Article 97. This is one of the mechanism. So like you have money in your bank, and then if you want to withdraw your money from your bank, you have several mechanism. If you have internet banking, so you can use your internet banking system to transfer, withdraw through transfer. If you want to, if you don't have, you have a card, you can go to the ATM to withdraw the money. Or alternatively, the traditional way, you can go to the counter and then you can withdraw the money. So that is the mechanism to withdraw the money from your bank account. So, but here we talk about the government. As we talked previously, the government under the Article 97 required by the Constitution to establish the consolidated fund purposely to account all the inflows and outflows of the public money. And then the next is we talk about the mechanism to withdraw the money. So if the money we are recorded in the consolidated fund, so all we recorded in the consolidated fund, the next question is to make it useful for that money, for that fund, we need to spend it. We need to spend. And then the spending are described or required under the Article 98 and Article 100. So that is the money can be spent for the charge, the money can be spent for the supply. But the question is how to withdraw the money. That is we talk about now is how to withdraw the money. So one of the mechanism to withdraw the money from the consolidated fund are through the preparation of budget based on the Article 99, 1, 2, and 3. Article 99, 1, 2, and 3. That is the article specifically talk about the budget. Okay. Okay, so this is the function of budget on economy. Beside the mechanism of the uh, um, uh, mechanism for the government, for the executive. When I talk about the government, it refers to the executive. Yeah? So please bear in mind. Therefore, I several times says that government, government, means that when I talk about the government, please you would directly understand government is referred to the executive branch. There is executive, and then it refers to the, if we read it to the group of people, this is the cabinet minister. The cabinet minister, the government, the function of budget, besides as a mechanism to withdraw the money, the budget also can be functioned related with the economy, which is the government intended to uh, uh, um, uh, formulate the policy related with the economy. Related with the economy. So, for example, government express in terms of the utilization of the public resources. The government policy related with the economic growth, with the balance in the national economy and so on. That is also about the budget. Therefore, if you remember what had been speech by our finance minister during the budget presentation in the parliament in the last Friday, you can see that. So he highlight the policy of the government for the next year related with the how to cope the uh, um, 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 uh, weaknesses, how to combat the economy, how to overcome pandemic situation, how to help the society, and so on. So that is all talk about the government policy related with the economy and also the utilization of the uh, resources. Beside that, budget also is a document that representing the government proposed revenue and proposed spending for a financial year. Because at the end of that, you can see that when you read the newspaper the next day on Saturday, so from there you can see that total amount that been spent by the government for the next year is around 321 billion. So that is the proper spending of the year. And then um, from they are provide into the several areas, sectors, such as that is for the operation, how much for the development, how much for the operation, how much goes for the emolument, how much goes for the social, how much goes for the welfare, how much goes for the free charge, and so on. So that is the proposed. Why is it proposed? Because what have been tabled by the finance minister is subject to the approval by the legislative. Okay, so this is the some of the definition by the conceptual, the definition of the budget from the various um, references that I have referred. You can see that starting with I could here Wildaski 1978 until the what have been related to our country at the last is on the Malaysian Office of Budget 28, which is they talk about this you can see that there is the very wide definition of the budget, but they talk about the same thing. So if you refer to the Wildaski, it's a document containing figures and proposed expenditure and the purpose. Means that in the budget you can see the figures because there is a financial document and propose expenditure, how much the expenditure expenditure goes to this particular purpose, and then um, uh, um, what are the purpose of the expenditure to cover for the social sector, to cover for the operation, to cover for the development, and so on. Until you can see the last what had been defined by the um, mission officer office budget. So it's a statement of revenue and expenditure for a particular year being used as a tool for planning and managing the country economic resources. So this is a talk about the tools, statement of the revenue and expenditure. Therefore, in the budget, we need to have the two main components. Later, we will talk about that. The component of the expected revenue and estimate expenditure. And then this is the characteristic of the government budget. So emphasis on the expenditure control. So the in the budget more toward on the control. That is the element aspect. Therefore, we learn in the first topic about the control. There are three different level of control if you divide it into the activity. If you look from the on the perspective of the responsibility of the control, so we can see that the responsibility of the control under the shoulder of the several institution. So not just the executive, but also the legislative, the watchdog, the NAD, several agency. And then the second is you can see that the government budget, they have a tendency toward incremental, because there is the nature of the government incremental. Like, for example, if you compare the last year as compared to this year budget, so you can see that the amount is being incremental because there is the expand of the government, the increase in the cost and so on. And the third one is normally there is no attempt to relate input to output or expenditure to the performance. Means that the budget do not clearly state that how can this amount we spend we are able to generate or we able to provide the performance. There is not a clear cut on the matters. This is due to the difficulties in the nature of the government. And the fourth one is budget being prepared for time span of 1 year. Means that budget need to be prepared on yearly basis for the every 1 year, because there is the duration of the, which is, if we are prepared for 2 years, for example, this is so many variants been happens, because normally the condition, the situation have been changed um, uh, on yearly basis. For example, we talk about the COVID. Previously, before 2020, we don't have the case of the COVID, also the economic recession and so on. So there is normally 1 year is a very suitable uh, in preparing the budget, because during a year there is not so much change from the uh, several condition. Okay, so this is the function of budget. In the public sector, the budget have played the two main function. While in the private sector, only this the right side function, management instrument. But in the public sector, the first one is more important, which is budget have played as a fiscal policy for the particular government. So this is the fiscal policy. In the fiscal policy, we can see that there are divided into three function, allocation function. Means that, if you look from the current year budget, I just taken 2022 budget, you can see that how the government want to allocate the resources from the public fund, or we call the consolidated fund. So they want to allocate amounted 322 billion. Out of 322 billion, they allocate into several sectors: economic sector, education sector, social sector, political sector, and so on. And then you can see that most of the allocation goes to the education, around 54 billion, if I'm not mistaken, goes to the uh, um, um, education. That is the allocation. Therefore, we see that this is the intention, the fiscal policy of the government. And then distribution, how do they distribute? So how do they distribute? There is the policy in terms of the distribution and for the stabilization. So budget can play for the stabilization. For example, how to stabilize the price, by allocate some subsidies of the several sectors, for example, for the household sectors, for the research and development sectors. So there is the fiscal policy. While on the second function on the management instrument is talk about the uh, resources planning tools. So how to plan the resources. For example, resources we refer to the revenue. So how they are planned the revenue, how much the revenue, what kind of revenue, and so on. Controlling tools more toward on the expenditure. So therefore, they allocate, let's say, we allocate certain amount for this sector. So, and then when implement, do not ensure that do not exceed the amount allocate. That is the control. And then for the performance means that therefore it's related with the article 1994, which is after year end, the government are required to prepare the statement of the asset and liabilities. So which is the statement of the asset and liabilities, which is supported by the statement of the financial performance that show the budget amount and the actual amount. That is the um, um, performance measurement tools. Okay, so this is we talk about the fiscal policy. I think this is straightforward. You can read directly on the matters. Um, and then what are the effect of the fiscal policy? And then this is what we have said about the allocation, distribution, and stabilization. All this talk about the first function on the fiscal policy. And then this is as a management instrument for the planning, control, and measurement. Okay, so that is on the first part on the introduction toward the public sector budget, and in summary, um, what had been prepared, proposed by the government. The government proposed total budget, and the total budget can be categorized into three, which is for every year. They may choose only one only, but it's depend on the government. Let's say for the in our country, for almost 25 years in a row, 25 years in a row, um, the government have proposed the deficit budget. Proposed the deficit budget. But if you look on the some of the state government at the state, some state propose the surplus budget. So that is, I give you a clue how to look on the surplus as compared to the deficit. So you can search for the government, state government of Penang, state government of Selangor, Pahang. I think there is some of the state that propose the surplus budget in previous year. In the next year, they are not present yet, because the presentation of the state budget must come after the federal. Why? Because in the federal, uh, they need to be tally with the federal, because the federal influence are very very huge as compared to the state. Some of the state economy depend totally on the federal allocation. So therefore, uh, normally by the practice, the state government will prepare or present the budget after the federal government present their budget in their parliament. Okay, so we have a surplus, balance, and deficit. And then you can see that this is not simple like that, because all of the proposed will have the influence toward the economy. So influence would not just, oh, I like to, so therefore I propose this. I like this, therefore I propose this. Please bear in mind, this is a fiscal policy which is directly directly affect the country economy. Okay, so um, uh, as a summary, I provide a summary of what we have discussed before. We talk about definition. Definition of budget is varies, and then on the purpose, you can see that there are two main purpose: to meet the legal and also as a tool for the management, or we call meet the responsibility or accountability. So, and then this is the function. There are two main functions: fiscal policy and management instrument. Okay, so that is on the first part. So now we look on the federal and state budget statutory requirement. So this is what we have said, that this one, to fulfill legal requirement, to fulfill legal requirement. So the next we talk about the what kind of legal. So we need to be proof that that is in the public sector, not just you say in general you answer the question. Okay, why? What are the purpose of the government prepare budget? To meet the legal requirement and full stop like that. This is you. You say right, but you have zero mark because you do not provide a proof, a reference of that. So as I said several times, in the academy, all the matters we have said, we need to be provide the proof. So without the providing the proof, we call only the claim. The claim. Like claim ni just like rumors. Kabar angin. Okay, so I provide to you, this is the way how to understand that, which is when we talk about the legal requirement. So we need to refer to the what we have discussed in the previous topic. So what means about the legal? It comprised of the highest starting with the constitution until the lowest is the financial regulation. So financial regulation. Okay, so this is what I have been uh, listed to you. First, you can see that the power of the parliament, this is stated under the Article 97. And then you can see that under the Article 97 to Article 103, that is talk about the general requirement of the uh, um, financial management. And then under the section 4 of the FPA, which is on the operation, and also the subsidiary legislation in terms of the instruction and treasury circulars. Okay, so this is on the detail of that matters. So if you can look on the Article 99, 1, 2, and 3, Article 100, 101, this is more specifically related with the budget. So related with the budget. And then in the more detail, so as you refer to the section 15.1 and 15.4 of the FPA. So therefore, I say that in understanding this topic well, please you open the related sources, especially on the Constitution, Financial Procedure Act, because together with yours, and then with that, you will be familiar with that. So you will be familiar with that. Hopefully, if this question raised in the final exam, you are familiar to find out where and then what are talk about that. Because if first time you know, of course you will trouble because some titles stated in that matters sometimes it's not related, but when you look in more detail, so you can see that what have been intention of that particular section or article in the sources that we refer being related with the subject what we have discussed. Okay, so for example, if you look on the section 15.1 and 15.4, so you can see here that the budget shall show subdivision of expenditure. So what are the meaning of the subdivision? If you understand here, means that it requires a more detail, because not just division. Division is the less detail as compared to the subdivision. But the second question is how many subdivision we need to detail out. How many subdivision need to be detailed out? And then the second is why need to be prepared based on the subdivision? So that is the two main question. So to answer this, so we need to refer to the more detailed explanation that is we say that the subsidiary requirement in terms of the rules or financial rule that is stated in the guideline. So, for example, if you want to know about the subdivision, how many subdivision as required under the section 15.1, so you need to refer to the TI number 4 to 41, and also you need to refer to the TC 1.1 2013, which is both this. I see that you need to search directly from the Google search to find out, because I do not include in the rules and regulation. It is too lengthy, which is if we put inside that, of course, it be useless since we want to cover in one topic only, and then you are refer to a lot of the resources of that, but you go and search for yourself after you have a free time, for example, just to look on the matters. So from the subsidiary resources, we can identify that the expenditure need to be divided into five main purposes. the emolument, supplies and service, the asset, the grant and fixed charge, and the other asset. And then revenue can be classified into 4 categories. So let's say we do ask the question, uh, why the expenditure need to be categorized into 5 different functions? That is because this is have been explained by the TI. They have been explained by the TC, which is you refer to the right TC, right TI to support that why question. So revenue being classified into 4 categories, which is revenue from tax, non-tax, and so on. And then please bear in mind this categorized or classification are based on the budget and accounting classification, not in the general. Not in the general. This is the budget and accounting classification, because now we talk about the how to prepare the budget. The budget, when we prepare, it consists of the revenue and expenditure. So the question is how detailed the revenue and expenditure should be we prepare in the budget. So to answer that question, we refer to the particular references, and then we can see that the expenditure need to be classified into 5 category, while the expenditure need to be classified, the revenue need to be classified into 4 category. But all of that category need to be detailed out. Need to be detailed out. Not just put as supply, service, emolument, asset, and so on, because this is not fulfilled the requirement as stated under the TC11 2013, which is this is support of the section 15.4 of the FPA. So where the revenue and expenditure need to be detailed out into 4 different level of object. So namely general object, standard object, detail group object, group detail object and detail object. So this is we just put under the requirement. So what are detail object, group object, we can see later. So don't worry. But this is we talk from the requirement, because as I said that when we deal with the requirement, we understand that requirement is must. So this is the basic understanding. When you want to prepare budget letter, you taken into consideration all this matter. So without taking all this matter, your budget is wrong. Okay, and then also current policy. This is I provide example of the TC, which is deal we discussed before. Purpose of the TC is to provide a detailed guideline for the day-to-day operation and dealing with the current situation, current year. For example ni, garis panduan bagi penjagaan cadangan anggaran belanja pasukan tahun 2021. That is for the 2021. For the 2022, they also have this but PB 1.3 2022, because budget need to be prepared before commencement of the year. Okay, so that is the part B on the budget requirement. Okay, so now we go on the part C. That is the budget component. So you can see that the flow we give you a very general on the budget, and then more towards specifically on the requirement, and the next is on the component. After you have a component, the next we talk about the item, detail item, and then after that the system, and then the next you can able to prepare the budget. Okay, for you to understand in simple the budget, um, this is the mapping of the uh, budget in simple. So budget need to have two main item, namely revenue and expenditure. And then revenue need to be divided into sources, which is uh, classified as tax, non-tax, and non-revenue. But we have another one for demolition. Another one is revenue from federal territory. So you put another one, another box, revenue from federal territory, and then need to be detailed out. Need to be detailed out. I just give example of this because to put it that so many box it is very difficult and then looking useless. So text can be classified into direct and indirect. That is we talk about the detail object and that matters. And then on the expenditure, so we have two different group of expenditure, operating and development. So operating uh, um, being grouped into charge under Article 98 and supplies under the Article 100. Okay, so this is the budget component and classification in more detail, which is what means of the estimate revenue as a first item on the budget. It must be have uh, estimate revenue, which is what are the meaning of the estimate revenue, what are the meaning of the revenue, and then what should be excluded from there. So revenue refer to funds that are raised through various means, include tax, non-tax, and non-revenue received. Okay, that is the sources of revenue. So you can see that sources of revenue, it can be come from the tax, from the duties. So you can see that there is a difference between tax and duties, penalty and fine, gift, quick pro payment, international loan, so which is the government can make borrowing. So this is the sources of the um, revenue for the government. So you can see that the sources of revenue, and then you can uh, uh, differentiate between the classification of revenue based on the budget, what we have said before, which is tax, non-tax, and non-revenue. But can we come to the sources, it's more broader. Okay, so this is the revenue component of revenue for the federal. So we have four main component: tax, non-tax, non-revenue received, and revenue from federal territories. Okay, so this is the classification based on nature. If we talk about the tax, non-tax, based on nature. Why based on nature? Because the nature of the revenue being imposed by the government. So if the government impose or collect the revenue through the law, that is we call the tax revenue. It's collected through the law. Based on the law passed the legislative under the Article 96. All these method tax revenue, they are fall under the Article 96. So therefore, it is a compulsory payment. And then By definition, tax revenue, this is income received from the different tax and other duties levied by the government, which include individual, company, corporation, import and export. So on the individual, you are familiar with the individual income tax. On the company, you are familiar with the company's income tax, company's tax, and so on. Okay, and then this is on the revenue. Still on the tax revenue. Tax revenue can be divided into two groups: direct tax and indirect tax. In simple, to understand what are direct tax, by definition, there is the real burden of payment fall directly. So example, we say that about the income tax. Income tax. So if talk about the individual income tax, so this is imposed to the individual who their income are exceed or over the taxable income. So which is the income tax or corporate tax. This is I come together the sources here for the federal, state, and also local. So for the state, almost the example of the direct tax include land tax, drainage tax, which is this is all collected by the state government. And then for the local government, rates. So rate, or we call the most popular on the in Malaysia, assessment tax. Assessment tax, cukai apa nama ni? Cukai pintu. Cukai assessment, cukai penilaian. In real translation, is based on the assessment. Okay, and then on the indirect tax, beside the direct tax, the government also impose the indirect tax. So indirect tax is simple for you to generally able to differentiate between these two. In Malaysia, for the federal government, direct tax are managed by the IRB, but indirect tax are managed by other than IRB. So means that because it relate with the duties, import, duty, export, and so on. So normally this is collected by the custom, immigration. That is for the uh, um, federal government. For the state government, uh, this is collected by the land department, but not means that land tax. Land tax is the direct tax. So the indirect tax for the state government, for example, is land premium. Land premium. If you want to know detail on land premium, you have taken the paper specialized financial accounting. So under the topic 2 property development, so you can see that discussed a little bit thoroughly about the land premium. So land premium is indirect tax for the state government, while land tax is the direct tax for the state government. So that is the similar to the entitlement duties. That is also indirect tax for the state government. So therefore, talk about the entitlement. If you are the organizer to handle that, so you need to get the license from the state government, and then get the approval, and the state government will charge you the entitlement duties. Okay, and then this is non-tax revenue. So non-tax revenue, by definition, is the revenue collected from the service or product um, provided by the government. The government charge the people. So this is different with the um, with the tax, because the tax is not related with the exchange. So therefore, under the accrual base, tax either direct or indirect are classified under non-exchange transaction. But for the non-tax, mostly are classified under the exchange transaction. This matter later we can see in the when we discuss about the local government uh, in the topic financial report, because local government starting with the 2018, they are practice the uh, uh, accrual based on the MPSAS. While in the federal estate, until 2020, 2019 that I already upload the statement, the report on the 2019 for the federal government. That is the latest that I can search for. Um, they still practice the modified cash basis. Modified cash basis. Therefore, we do not classify all this matter into exchange and non-exchange, because classification based on exchange and non-exchange are under the accrual base. So while under the modified cash base, we'll still use the same classification. But bear in mind, these classifications still been used in the accrual base. But we have another column for the exchange and non-exchange, which is this is fall under the exchange category. So therefore, we say that this is collected from the product or service. And the best example is we talk about the licenses. So licenses, those who want to drive a car in Malaysia, so you need to have the driving lesson. So driving lesson, so um, driving lesson only charged to those who have a license. Those who don't have a license, you will not pay. So therefore, we say that there is the exchange, because in order to get the approval to drive a car in Malaysia, you need to have a license. And if you apply for license, you need to pay the uh, license. So that is we talk about the license. And then for the state government entertainment permit. So please do not confuse with this. This is entertainment duties. This is the entertainment permit. So the permit and duties is different. Permit is the approval to um, uh, uh, what we call to have the show in the particular state. You need to have the permit. So before you have, after you have a permit, you also need to pay the duties. So, and then it's the more common is sale of form. So when you want to apply something, or this is normally be familiar for those who have been contractor, you attend, you bidding for the tenders and so on. You need to fill the form, and then you need to buy the form, charge, penalty, and so on. Okay, so and then the third one is non-revenue received. This matter is you a little bit confused maybe. This is non-revenue but received. So non-revenue actually they are not really revenue, because it comes from the transfer payment. For example, the best example is on the refund of expenditure, um, uh, and then repayment. So case repayment ni, for example, case refund ni, for example, refund of expenditure, for example, when you step down from the job you currently because you want to retire or whatever, and then you step down. Instead of you given the valid notice, you want to step down promptly 24 hours, for example. So you need to pay back to the government. That is we call the refund, and the refund of expenditure is fall under the non-revenue receipt, while the last one is on the revenue from federal territories. So which is this is only for the federal government, because one of the area that is fall under the federal government in Malaysia are the federal territories, which is comprised of the Kuala Lumpur, Labuan, and Putrajaya. So all the uh, three different category of the revenue collected by the government from this particular area. So because in the federal territory, also they have the um, uh, tax revenue, non-tax revenue, non-revenue received but collected inside the federal territory, so being classified under the revenue from the federal territories. Okay, so that is the first part of that component. The second part, we have the expenditure. So the expenditure component, so this matter, I think we will continue on the next meeting on the next Sunday after next week. So next week, next meeting on Thursday we have holiday, so we have no class on the Thursday. And then on Monday next week, on 8th of November, we have a presentation of the individual assignment for the first group, and also on the Thursday, on the 11th November, we have a presentation, and on the 15th, so we will continue on the budget component, the second component, that namely the government expenditure. I hope you read earlier for you to understand. And then with that, I think that's all for today.